Soon after I moved to St. Louis, I found out that I should invent a high school I went to. Because if you have no high school here in St. Louis, you don't belong anywhere. I have come to realize that your high school defines you in many ways. That people can put a label on you once they know what school you went to. Usually, your high school will explain your social status, the neighborhood you lived in, whether or not your parents could afford a higher or lower payments for your education. It makes it easier to put you in the right drawer, in the right category. And we are told many times that our past define us. That what we have done until today makes us who we are. That all the things that were done to us, beginning with birth all the way until this morning, shape us who we are today. And there is some truth in that. Psychologists will say that the most formative years of child's life are these from 0 to 5. You shape your children's life by positive or negative influence in these very, very important years of their lives. And also, if you do something every day or many times, it becomes a part of your nature. If you have been taught since early days to say morning prayers every day, it will become a part of who you are. You will do this almost without reflecting. It will become a part of your daily schedule. And to turn the table upside down, if you don't do something, if your parents never taught you or encouraged you to go to church, it will not be something you think of as a natural thing. If Sunday was a time to go and play golf, it will be a time to go and play golf when you are 40, 50, and 80 perhaps. We are very much creatures of our customs, of what we are used to, but not always. Look at this scene from today's gospel. The woman was caught, strangely enough, in the very act of adultery. One would think, well, where is the other person, right? Obviously, the scene takes place in a very much patriarchal structure. Woman is the one to blame for adultery. He was just a lost soul, right? She was wearing provocative dress. It's her fault. Not much has changed since then, has it? So they bring this woman and they define her by what she has done. They attach a label to her saying she is an adulterous woman. This act defines her. And in accordance with our definitions, moreover, in accordance with the Bible, she should be stoned. She should be executed. Her past in the eyes of the scribes and the Pharisees, defines her absolutely. There is no doubt in their mind to who she is. She is an adulterous woman. Nothing else matters. That's all they need to know in order to categorize her, in order to issue a judgment. But not so in Jesus' eyes. Jesus is not someone who says, do whatever you want and you'll be just fine. He is not someone who says religion has no connection with ethics or moral life. If you follow carefully his preaching, he sets up the moral standards quite high. He expects us to be faithful to our spouses. He expects us to give generously to those who are less fortunate. He demands of us to follow in his footsteps. So he is not saying, whatever you do, you'll be fine, everything is cool, you are great. That's not the Jesus of the gospel. And yet, he is not allowing himself nor the crowd to define this woman by her past. Even though he is a rabbi of very high moral expectations, he is not judging her by what she did. He believes that our past indeed shapes us, but it does not define who we are. What you did yesterday, how you were raised, all the mistakes of your life until 10 minutes ago do not define who you are. They do not make you who you are. Yes, you have to take responsibility for your life, but the high school you went to, the college you finish or not, your past relationships, the churches you used to go to, the things you did do not define who you are. Jesus, I assume, was quite familiar with prophet Isaiah. In several places, especially in Luke's Gospel, Jesus is quoted reading Isaiah out loud. And today's passage, our first reading, reminds us a very important statement from that great prophet. Remember not events of the past. Forget the things of yesterday. Remember not. Because what happened yesterday does not define you. Just because you made the same mistake 2 times already doesn't mean that you have to make it once again today. Just because you never finished college doesn't mean that you cannot finish it today in your 40s, 50s, or 70s. Just because your first or second marriage didn't work out doesn't mean that the one you are trying right now will fail as well. Just because we have never had female deacons in this church doesn't mean that we will not have them in a year or 2. Just because we have never sang a spiritual hymn in this church doesn't mean that we cannot try today. Our pasts shape us, but our choices today define who we are. We can escape our childhood memories. We can redefine the mistakes of yesterday. Jesus believes that even though you sinned this morning, 10 minutes ago, now you are in control of your life. That you can define your future. Not your past, not your high school, not your family, not your friends, not your yesterdays, but you are in charge of your life. God, the one in whom I believe, and I hope the one in whom you believe as well, is always a God of second, third, and 157th chances. God allows you to define your life every day anew. It doesn't matter if you were caught in the very act of doing something stupid. What matters is that you can go and sin no more. Today, now, at this very moment. This is the very definition of good news. Gospel in Greek means good message. This is the very message for which Jesus was crucified. Do not let your past define you. It is shaping you, true, but your identity, the very heart who you are, lies in your own hands.